Productive Dentist Academy podcast network.
Walk through that door yourself. If you don't understand how important that is, walk through the door yourself. Walk outside the back door, come in the front door, and see how it feels to have somebody simply say, "Welcome in."
Thanks for tuning into the Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. I'm Regan Robertson. My co-host Sara Hansen and I interview real dentists and experts who grow their dental practices using authentic marketing in a way that you can remember, repeat, and use in your own practice to get the patients you deserve. Let's dive in.
Doctors, have you enjoyed the last 2 episodes navigating your way through the reception area, the patient experience, and all the different touch points? If you have, you're going to love today's episode. If you haven't, doctors, go back and listen to episode 317 and 318 because it's going to set you up perfectly for today's episode. I am joined by my co-host, Regan.
Hi, Sara.
Hi. And we have a really, really special guest, an amazing person that I've known for a very long time. We've worked together. We're from the same state. um, Listeners, I want to introduce you to Miss Apryl. Apryl, welcome to our podcast. How are you?
Thank you. I'm great. Thank you for having me, Sara and Regan. I'm excited to do this with you guys. It's important.
Yes. So when Reagan and I were thinking about, okay, we have talked about the patient experience, we've talked about touch points, we've talked about the reception area, marketing ties into it, sound, all those different things. I wanted to bring what I consider an expert in the dental industry to really act as that team member. Apryl, you have been in dentistry for a really long time. Can you tell our listeners just your background, all the things that you've done within the dental office?
Sure, absolutely. So I was born into the dental industry. My dad is a dentist, and so even as a little girl, when we were having cereal, I remember our stove was between the counter of sitting at the counter, and our stove and our cereal was below it. And I remember my dad saying, "Hand me the cereal box," and I handed it to him, and he's like, "No, no. Like when you hand that to me, I don't want to look up. I want to know that's in my hand." You guys, I think I was maybe 6 years old. So, yes, I have been born definitely into dentistry, old school dentistry. And I worked for my father until he retired. Then I worked for another office that we built the practice from the ground up. And I was an assistant and the office manager at the same time, dual positions. And then I went to my last office and I worked again as a dental assistant. And then I ended my career completely in dentistry there as the director of operations.
Wow. Apryl, you are, what do they say? The jack of all trades, the lady of all trades.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah. Whether you want to be or not, it's kind of out of necessity that you first get into the role, and then you have to like really hone in on your skills to be able to make this practice successful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, Reagan, I saw your face when Apryl was talking about having her dad hand her the cereal box the right way. So, little context for that. All of the dental assistants listening will know, and the doctors will snicker because the doctors, as they're working, they want to be able to know that you know what they need at that time. They don't even have to look up from what they're doing, that it just is in their hand at the right time, exactly where they want it, so they can continue staying so focused. So Apryl was learning that at 6 years old.
Already, Apryl, having you on this show is amazing because for Sara and I, it's really wonderful for us to teach theoretically. That every little intersection that patient comes across during the journey, from when they first hear about the practice all the way to when they're actually sitting in the chair and then checking out as well, that we understand what it is that they need at that moment and how they like to be received. And so to have you actively going through this in today's world, right now in this moment as a guest to share your experiences on the reception room and the patient phone call, when those little micro moments and how they make such a difference. To me, it just locks it right in. So yes, Sarah, my eyes did go up for sure. You were learning, right? I mean, you're just not even like kindergarten.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, and dentistry's definitely progressed from like the dentist, not all of them want to know that something's right in their hand. And when I very first started, my dad, towards the end of his career, I worked with him his last 8 years of practice. And I, at those last 2 years, filled in at almost every office in our little town for offices who maybe had a maternity leave for 3 days a week, or somebody sick, or somebody just simply wanted to go on vacation and knew that they could have an assistant come in. And, I would go into these other offices, and when I worked for my dad, I would hold his gloves open, and he would put his hands in them, so I'd go to other offices, and the doctor would look at me and look at his assistant and go, "You need to learn how to do this," and they're like, "No, get her out of here." Like, those are old school talents that I had that were kind of fun, as I was getting towards the end of my career, like, "You want me to put your gloves on for you?"
Yeah. Hey, that's like the OR, right? Scrubbing in, getting ready. I love it.
Yes, that's how we used to do it. Yeah.
Ap- April, with you having so many opportunities to work in different practices within your small town growing up, you probably saw things that you loved, made a lot of sense for patients. Maybe you saw great patient experiences, and then things that maybe were opportunities of, improvement or areas of opportunity. So, looking back at kind of where you came from, how did that help guide you then, leading dental practices later in your career?
I would say it helped me definitely know what kind of experience I wanted to have if I was the patient in the waiting room. And I don't do that, Sarah and Reagan, in just dentistry. I do that, like you guys have been speaking about, anywhere I go, even today being retired. I do that if I'm at a doctor's office, I do that at a restaurant, I do that everywhere that I look around, and I see, like, what are other people seeing, because no matter what, at the end of the day, we're constantly growing. And if we're not, we should be. And so, for me, looking at the other offices, I I loved seeing. I've been in offices with the commercials about that office that were great. I have been in offices that had just like a Netflix on there, just straight music. Um, I would say that my least favorite and a growing opportunity for me to know what I didn't want was an office I went in that just had, like, it wasn't CNN, but some type of just regular old news on there.
Yeah.
And it just kind of it sets the tone for what you're about to go into. And I know that to some people that can be relaxing, but it's not inclusive. And I feel like it's really important when you're going to a waiting room to have like an inclusiveness that you feel welcome. You feel welcome, and you're just about to have that next experience that's gonna feel welcome as well.
Yeah. I love that. We talked about Reagan and I in the previous episodes, different opportunities, that you could have. And that is one of those marketing opportunities. And, take a deeper look on like what is playing on your TV? Are you setting
Yeah.
a tone for what we want the patients to experience? Um,
Yes.
April, one of the things I love about you is not only your friendliness and like just your enthusiasm toward life, but you really make everybody feel seen and heard. Knowing you for so long, I've seen you work with patients. I Can you explain to some of our listeners, one of the things that I know you do really well at is making each of the patients sitting out in the reception area, waiting for their appointment, feel seen and heard. And then as they kind of transition for that next touch point into the practice, can you walk the listeners through on some of the things that you've learned or developed that made a huge impact on patients' lives within that first touch point in the reception area?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say one of the most important things is, and it's so simple, is to say welcome when somebody comes through the door. depending if you have a big waiting room or whether you have a small one. Having that acknowledgement that you've just come through the door with eye contact, like welcome, is so simple, but really, really important. And I, towards the end of my last practice, that was something that was a must. And then for me personally, Sarah, I love relationships with people. I teach from my heart. I love from my heart, and I am all heart. And so I just love people. It comes naturally to me. So for me to come out, I always looked at the photo of who I was going to see, and then and I'm coming from the dental assistant side of the waiting room. And so I would come out and I would say, let's say you were out there, and I would probably put my hand out and, Sarah, hi, nice to see you. Oh my gosh, your hair looks great. I always make sure to find something that's authentic, not something that is fake, and say, you look great today. I absolutely love that we have matching pink sweaters on, and I love how great you look. And engage with somebody that they know sincerely. I appreciate that you've taken the time to spend the time with me today, and I appreciate that we get to share for the next little while. And so it's always on a personal level for me from the waiting room. And then walking back all the way down the hallway is personal. How is the family? How is the kids? How is work? Whatever it be. And then into the chair, have a seat right here. Oh, I'm so glad you're here. And then that's when it kind of turns off for me. It doesn't turn off, but it's a switch. I put a bib on. As I'm clipping it, it's always, hold on, I have it in the back of my head. Any change in your health history?
Oh,
It's literally,
That's the
okay, have a seat right here. And I put the bib clip on and it closes and bam. Has there been any change in your health history, Sarah? And it just, they know, like, I mean business, I'm still me, but
yeah.
that has always been how I work is building that relationship, but then as we get to the chair, just changing it just slightly, but I'm still here. I'm still your advocate. I tell people all the time, I am your advocate. And when they leave, they call me and they know, like, I sincerely mean it. I am here for you.
Man, April, that cannot be overstated to say welcome as soon as they walk in. It feels so small, such a micro expression, and it makes a massive difference, like amazingly so. In your practice, does the person who would greet and say welcome, are they responsible for phones at all, or do they get to be just dedicated right there, or do they have to juggle like phone calls and things like that?
Not only is everyone juggling the phone in the last practice I was in, but they're also, I mean, there was 4 people up there, sometimes 5, oftentimes people walking in, walking out, checking in, checking out, sitting in the waiting room, and, you have to tweak it constantly. We did an expansion, and so I continued to try and tweak it, and finally you listen to, I don't hear people coming through the door. So then you put a little bell on the door. And then you ended up putting like one of those silence, like, things where the door opens and closes, where we took the bell off, but then put a little like doorbell that when every time the door opened and closed behind the front counter, then you could hear it. So that you are constantly working through those roadblocks of RY. Like, oh, I can't do this because I've got a patient in front of me. I can't do this because of the fact I didn't hear them come in, or they're standing in front of me and I was on the phone. So that it's a priority no matter what, that everybody knows that we turn around, even if you're on the phone, like we hear somebody came in and we know, like, oh, welcome in. And even to the point that I mean, and this is a team experience, right? So if I'm standing up front and I see all these people are on the phone, who cares if they get 3 welcome ins? Does it matter? No. Like, if you're a dental assistant and you're asking a question and somebody walks through the door, it's all of our responsibility to be like, welcome in. Like, how cool is that 3 people just said welcome in, and you're like, whoa, that's pretty cool. So it's everyone's busy. I understand it. I get it. But walk through that door yourself If you don't understand how important that is, walk through the door yourself. Walk outside the back door, come in the front door, and see how it feels to have somebody simply say, "Welcome in."
Yeah. April, I love that. And I love that you spoke about the roadblock before it became a big roadblock, or before, as a team, you all had a goal to do specific things on the patient experience. And we know that it gets busy, right? We know there's a lot of things happening. So I love that you address that there are times we're going to have to pivot. We're going to have to find solutions to help create that patient experience that all of us as a team are looking to give to each of our patients. So I want to know, can you speak to some of the patients that have received that great patient experience? Everything has gone as planned, right? Versus maybe some of the times it's gotten chaotic. You've been down team members, because we know that the doctors that are listening and the teams, they experience the great days and then the chaotic days. Can you speak to that kind of, what do your patients experience on the good days, but then talk to us about the chaotic days?
Well, there's always gonna be chaos. This is dentistry. I would say, to end this conversation, but I'm gonna come back, is sit in your waiting room. Sit out there once in a while. Go sit and see, like, how is the mood? How is it going out there? Does it seem, and after a while, because number one, your team's gonna know you're catching them doing good things. That's what I always tell them, like, "I'm out here and just keep doing what you're doing. I'm just listening for other things, like what I could do better." So, catch people doing right, and they'll be used to you being out there. The days that you go to get a patient, maybe for me, I wasn't always able, especially the last several years of my career, I wasn't in the waiting room. I had my own office doing a lot of, other things, but you could hear the patience and the tone of the day. And if it was, like, quieter, you knew that it was probably super busy in the waiting room, that there wasn't a lot of buzz going on out there, which probably wasn't a lot of welcome ins and those types of things. You have 4 doctors going, you have 4 hygienists going. It's crazy. But that doesn't excuse us from making sure that we make a connection to make a good experience for patients. That's the ultimate goal, no matter what. And so at that point, you just get up and maybe stop by the rooms and say, like, "Hey, Sarah, it's so good to see you today. I didn't get to see you in the waiting room. I wanted to make sure you knew I was here. I just want to connect with you," and make sure that you create that, because it it's not always going to be there, but you need to make sure that you have a presence of it. And it's just about listening to what it sounds like outside of your own office if you're not right close to the waiting room.
Oh, I love that. Reagan, we spoke about this in the last podcast. I can see your wheels turning, like,
Well, there's one thing I saw an office do recently that I thought was brilliant, and it was to tackle the lack of a welcome if there has to be a lack of a welcome because somebody's on the phone. So,
Yeah.
so walking in, and it was like a little happy face on a little blinking light, and it said, and the little happy face had like a little chat bubble, and it just says, "If I'm blinking, I'm on the phone," and it was approachable and cute, and and this particular practice is very good with their welcomes. However, I thought, man, they've anticipated. So I wonder if they had someone come in or if they went through and walked, because I think, April, it's hard to see any element in the office from a fresh perspective because we get used to our routines. We get used to, like you said, coming in the back, or even if we're sitting out front, we just kind of have, it's like you can't see your nose. Your eye learns to ignore your nose.
Yeah.
So you don't really ever see that it's right there unless you focus on it. So is there, I like the tangible for me that you said was sit down, look at the positive, but really try to engage your senses. So maybe listening for the sounds and then scanning with your eyes. Is that something that you just picked up over time, or was there something that you said, okay, I'm going to do 1, 2, 3 to make sure that I'm not having a blind spot in evaluating my reception area?
Oh, Regan, let me tell you, like, there's a lot of blind spots, and there's a lot of times that I can tell you I missed the boat a million times. So this absolutely comes I can tell you probably 3 weeks before I retired, I was missing the boat still. Don't think by any means that this is on the daily, I've got this stuff together, but in all reality, that is the reality of it. It's just a constant work in progress. You have to be real about it, but you have to bring it back to the forefront that remember your why. Remember that these people coming in are are why you have your job. It's why I loved my job so very much. It's the people. And so yeah, you have to work on it constantly and then just remember maybe I know at some point some of the girls had little baby mirrors by their desk to remember like, "Oh yeah, I need to smile," or "Oh yeah." And it's just those little tiny like you say micro moments that you're like, "Oh, yeah, that's right. Oh, that's right." And it might be like your nose where it's just out of sight, out of mind, but you need to put something in there or have somebody around who brings that power and that light and that authenticity of a smile. And for me, yes, it absolutely was learned from a very small child. Um, answering the phones as my dad, you didn't have call waiting back in those days. So you couldn't be on the phone. And then when call waiting came, you answered the phone just like you were a receptionist. "Thank you for calling our residence. This is April speaking. How can I help you? I'm 6 years old." So yeah, yeah, that stuff was ingrained in me from itty bitty. And then going to classes like crazy, going to a PDA seminar, answering, just building constantly
Mhm.
on what you could do for leadership and how to bring those memories back to always remembering that experience. People will always remember, maybe not always remember, they'll remember who you are and they'll remember like going to the dentist, but they will not forget an experience, a story, the way you made them feel. If you make them
Yeah.
feel like seen, heard, especially in the dental office, that is your goal. Like from your heart, that is your goal that somebody absolutely will remember this experience.
I love this so much, April. This is why I love you. What I love about what you said is, I think because we do this every day in the dental office, I think it can become very routine. And I think oftentimes we forget that dentistry, we are truly transforming lives. Reagan and I talk to doctors and teams all the time and April, you see it in all of your practices over the years, right? But they truly transform lives. You are changing people's lives, truly, through dentistry. Smile, like they're
Yes.
confident. They get jobs that they've never had. They actually want to show up and participate in life. Like you do that every day. And I think sometimes we forget about that. So I love that you brought it back to why do we do this? And the other piece is it's about the people. I mean, and the relationship and again, they're coming to us for so many different reasons, and it's our job to figure out what they need and how we best show up for them, and connect with them during the process. I love what you're saying. You're speaking our language for sure. So, I have a tricky question for you because while you worked in a big office where there's multiple people to answer the phone. Yes, you have multiple doctors as well, but what would you say to the OM or the admin team that is the lone ranger at the front desk trying to greet the patients and answer the phone and still have that positive interaction that they're hoping to have? What advice would you give them?
Sarah, from the top of my head, this is literally what comes to my mind. If I was on the phone and I was all by myself, I
Yeah.
literally would like make like probably hold the phone with one arm, make like a love you sign language, and be like, "I'll be with you in just one moment." Like mouth it, like let them know like you are
Yes.
seen. And that's just I mean, that's been a lot of years ago that I was like that. Probably with my dad was the last time that I was like, there was like a receptionist and myself, and that was it. And I think that's what I would do from just my like this is what I would do is I would do that. I would make some type of gesture for them to know, like,
Yeah.
I see you. Also, Sarah and Regan, I'm going to tell you guys that back in the day, you just brought back such a memory. Back in the day when it was just one receptionist who crazy answered the phone, did the insurance, did the recall,
Yeah.
does the scheduling, and then you have one assistant who has three operatories, turn and burn in them, and one hygienist and one doctor. I can tell you guys that oftentimes when I would be walking up a patient, I could see her on the phone. I would
Yeah.
hand her a chart. I would listen to her for just a second, and I would take that phone from her and I would continue that conversation. And the patient on the other end had no idea that we had just swapped roles and somebody would be walking through the door and I would give them a like, hi, be with you in just a second. And
Yeah.
and just move right on. It's about teamwork. It's not just about that one person. It's being able to see and being able to be one. And that is loving each other. That is loving your team and your team loving you and being one so that no matter whose face that patient is seeing, no matter what, they know they're going to be taken care of. And if they're on the phone, they don't know who they're talking to, they're still going to be taken care of.
Yeah. I love that. Regan, this goes back into old PDA, the 5 E's.
Mhm. Oh, it really
And
does, doesn't it?
yeah, and we would talk about propping up each other as a team. So meaning April, well, what you and I have talked about the 5 E's before in the past, but the 5 E's of, the perfect patient phone calls and stuff. But part of that was when a new patient calls, giving them that confidence of, oh my goodness, I'm so glad you called us. Dr. Joe is the best at placing implants. He is going to take
Yes.
great care of you, right? Or, that is a great question about your insurance. I'm going to hand you over to Reagan because she's an expert and she will be able to answer all your questions. So, again, propping each other up as a team, putting your vote of confidence within what they do in their roles, and it really makes the patient feel held through that patient journey.
Yes. Well, and you're talking about being on the phone, and you wouldn't
Yeah.
believe how many times people come in the door and say, "Where is so and so? That's who took my phone call, and she was
Um,
amazing."
yeah.
And everybody will turn around and be like, "Oh, that's her right here." And, or if you're the only person there, like that person on that took that call, and those two made such a great bonding. And that can never be undone ever. Never.
Yeah.
Which is the why we do these things.
Yeah. One of the tips, April, that we like to talk to teams about, especially when it comes to the phone call, because it can be that make or break moment. It really is that first interaction with the practice. And what tends to happen is sometimes those phone calls can start to feel transactional.
Mhm.
Do you take Aetna? Yes, we do. Do you do root canals? Yes, we do. Right? We kind of go back and forth.
Yes.
But one of the things that we like to tell teams is you need to be asking 2 questions to every one question that the patient asks you. So when it comes to insurance, do you take Aetna? That's a great question. Yes, we do accept, or yes, we are unrestricted with Aetna, whatever that sounds like. Can you tell me a little bit more about why you called? I'm Sarah,
Yes.
that sort of thing. Just getting to know your patient more so it pulls them out of the transactional. What other tips would you give for that very first phone call that comes in with new patients? Because you are an expert at handling those new patient calls, really as a new patient advocate. What would you tell team members as tips and good things that you've seen over the year that make a big difference with converting that call?
So a couple of my favorites for the phone when I answer the phone, which I think comes from being a little girl. I love being on the phone. I love talking to people. Hi. this is going to sound funny, but this is kind of was always a pet peeve of mine. When a phone call comes in and I said, "Hi, this is April. How can I help you?" And the person would say, "Oh, this is Susie Smith, and I need to make an appointment." My go-to is always, "Oh, Susie, thank you so much for calling. How long has it been since we've seen you?" Just take that in. Let's say that person's never been there before. Let's say that person comes every other week. That phone call is going to go one way or the other. And it kind of bugs me to hear this sentence. "Have we ever seen you before?"
Yeah.
I'm like, wait, you're supposed to
That would
know
be so
if you,
yeah, I would be so offended. I'd be like, "Hello?"
I was here last week.
yeah, I was here yesterday. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you get in the mindset of always saying, "When was the last time we saw you?" "Oh, that's right. You were here yesterday. That is so awesome. Can you,
Yeah.
whatever the question is, can you help me? Are you recalling about this or that?" But that to me is such an opener for people to say, "Yes, I was there. I saw so and so," those kinds of things. It's a recognition. And for me on the phones, that is number one. With the toothaches, with insurance and things like that, um, I would always say, when they say, "Oh, I have a toothache," and for me, it was important to say, "Oh, you have called the right place. I am so glad you've called us. Can you tell me more about your toothache? How is it bothering you?" So you get that story. Everybody remembers a story, Sarah and Regan.
Yep.
So for me, I'm like, tell me that story. Tell me more. How long does it hurt you? And so from that story, as weird as this is, you get to know more. Is this really a true emergency or is it not? This has been hurting me for weeks. Not a true emergency. This started last night. I woke up in the middle of the night and throbbing. Oh,
Yeah.
so you're taking yourself seriously. This is an emergency.
Yeah.
And then I'm gonna
Yeah.
go down a whole nother way. Did this person just pick themselves off the couch and been meaning to call you for a month and finally got around to calling? If I got that feeling, I would want to get them in right away because obviously something, marketing probably, has picked up the phone and made them call. And so I want to probably do a consult with that person so that we get that instant, "I want you to know you can trust us. Come in for a free consult so that we can create that experience for you right that minute." And so from those first beginning words, you really get to know, is this going to be an emergency? Is this going to be a new patient? Or is this going to be a consult to see how fast am I going to make this experience last for this person?
Yeah. I love that. Reagan, I have to give you credit because you taught me the sentence, "Tell me more about that."
Oh, yeah. The tell me more about that is a big one, and it helps people get into that active listening mode. April, if I can reflect to you, there are 3 really particular traits that leaders embody that you have done on this entire time together with us, and that is that you are eternally curious. So in the hundreds of interviews that I've given, I haven't seen a leader that hasn't been eternally curious, especially with the growth trajectory that you've had. Even with you being in dentistry from being a very young child forward, there's obviously something about you that compels you to be a natural, active listener, which is trait number 2, being a great listener. And the third, which to me completes this trifecta, is your deep caring heart. And when you put all 3 of those together, not only are they 3 positive traits, but you can help someone feel seen and heard. And I'm very curious, is that something, do you think that you got that from your dad or your family, or were there particular instances along your career journey where that was positively reinforced for you? Because you did say that it is a team effort. And so as a leader, I'm sure those are 3 traits that you work on instilling in the team that you guide as well.
I would say it's a little bit of all, Regan. I think that I was born like this, come bouncing out of the womb of like, hey, here I am. I think my dad is a lot to be, credited for it. And constantly speaking about like, this is what you say, this is not what you say. My mom as well, like the finger, like, do not say that. But then a lot of it came from I watch a ton of YouTube videos on listening skills. That is a learned thing. It is really, really learned. And I used to share listening skills with the team on our team meetings, like the top 10 things you do to listen. And let me just tell you, it's important to listen. It is really, really important to listen. Celeste is one of the YouTube TED Talks that I did. I can't remember her last name, but she was so compelling about listening and how important it is to make a connection. And so I feel like, oh, and I know where else I learned it, but I'll continue down this. I think that you don't really care about somebody unless you're truly listening. Like you can't make that connection unless you're truly listening to what they're saying. I will tell you that going back a ways, I was a Mary Kay consultant. That's where I learned it. Mary Kay Ash taught how to listen. And one of the things that Celeste talked about is when somebody's talking to you, you should not have an answer back. And let me tell you guys, that's hard. That's so hard. I learned that in my career as a Mary Kay consultant. And I was like, wait, that isn't that active listening that you have something to come back with? And so you would think,
Yeah.
you would think it is. So that was probably my first aha moment of listening and truly getting an authentic answer back. But then when I started working with patients and listening to what they had to say, that's what probably where my heart grew more, like building that relationship with people is once you craft that listening skill, your heart grows and you're really into it with this person. And I would say a second part of that is not putting your own experience into that listening with them because it's really easy for me to do like, oh yeah, I know my kid does blah 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 or oh yeah, when I was younger I did this and that. And that isn't really active listening. That is just trying to throw your own stuff onto them. And so that I've had to really I'm still really learning that is to how to like really listen to people and to be able to say back, I bet that hurt. I bet that didn't feel comfortable. Or I bet that was the most exciting thing that ever happened to you. And I bet that was wonderful. That is active listening. And that is something that you have to work on all the time. Like it will never, if you stop learning, period. You you may as well hang it up. But that yes, that is it's both, Regan, to answer your question. It's both. I grew up that way, but I've taken little pebbles of pearls of knowledge my whole career, and I think I will until till the end of time.
Oh, April, this is so good. And I think you and Reagan are kindred listening spirits because Reagan has taught, I know all of us, so much about that, about what active listening actually means. And it's life changing. So I love that you spoke and shared that with all of our listeners because I think that's something, Reagan, we need to do a podcast on just your active listening stuff.
We will have
Oh yeah, for
It's so
sure.
good.
A-
It's so good.
April, you've given us a master class in the short time that we've been together, and I know there've been lots of laughing in this, but in a serious note, this really is the difference between hundreds of thousands in revenue coming into the practice. And doctor, if you're listening right now, I definitely challenge you to think about that and write that down. If you are not welcoming them in and you're not welcoming your patients in a way that helps them feel heard, it can be upwards of $1 million, I would say, in those larger practices, things that we take for granted by not listening at these micro moments and intersections. So yes, I challenge you to sit down in your own reception room and look at the magazines. How old are they? Look at the carpet, listen to the sounds and really ask that question. How are we showing our patients that we're listening to them? And April, that's what you've taught me in this time. It's been an incredible honor to have you here as our guest and
Thank
share your
you.
vast knowledge with us.
Can I just say also, Reagan, in that for doctors are busy. The money comes in if you're busy. And so find your person on your team. I was the person on the team that made the connection with my patients and that call them mine because at that moment they were mine. I had
Yeah.
a solid amount of time that was set aside for me to sit and listen. And so doctors, make the time for your assistant, your office manager, your treatment coordinator, whoever it's going to be, to sit down and let them get to know that person. And then let them come to you and give you the cliff notes. You don't have to be that one that sits there for 20 minutes as you're thinking, because you're not active listening, as you're thinking about all the 10 things and the patients in the other room that are hearing this. And I could just be giving anesthetic really quick. Those types of things. Have somebody, an auxiliary from your team, go ahead and do that and give you those. But then do not make that person repeat everything. Come in and say, you know what? April just shared with me your wonderful conversation. And the doctor come back and say, like, I loved that you moved here from so and so. I loved that you loved your last dentist. So that that person sitting there is like, wow, like I don't have to repeat myself. She heard everything. And another important thing that I always did for my patients is I would say, you know what? I'm going to go share with the doctor everything that we've talked about. And then from here on out, I'm going to be your advocate. I'm going to be standing behind you. The doctor's going to be talking. He's going to be calling out numbers and noises and things like that. And know that if I speak up behind you, it's because I'm your advocate. And I know that you are probably thinking this question. And I'm just going to ask the doctor while he's here. So if he didn't explain something that I thought in your terms you were going to understand, I'm going to be asking it so that you can hear it out loud. And then when he walks away, I'm going to be able to still answer your question. I am your advocate. I'm listening to everything for you.
Oh, I love everything you said. Such good, tangible takeaways from everything that you said, April. Um, Everyone, if you want any more fun takeaways, again, Regan and I are here. I can always get you connected to April. She is a great leader, a good mentor as well in the dental industry. So we are happy to get you in touch with any of us just to help support your team. Regan, any last thoughts as we end today's podcast?
I've learned a lot today, and really for me, the ending note is just absolutely pay attention to every small thing and those 3 traits. Bring your curiosity, bring your active listening, and bring your caring heart. I think that your chances, you will make mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes. It's a guarantee in life. But when you bring those 3 together, April, again, thank you for demonstrating your leadership capabilities, your incredible growth, and all the lessons you've learned along the way so that others can benefit from your bruises and your triumphs.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for having me. It's an honor for me to sit down with you too and pass on the torch to those that are going down that path.
Thank you, April.
Hey, thanks for joining us on Everyday Practices Dental Podcast. It would mean the world to me if you could leave us a like or a review on iTunes, or go to Productive Dentist Academy through Google and leave us a review there. We are here each week to talk about what's possible when you lead your practice with clarity and courage. If you are ready to build a business that supports your life and not the other way around, investment grade practice coaching powered by Productive Dentist Academy can help. Visit investmentgradepractice.com to schedule your free 60-minute coaching session so you can start designing the practice and lifestyle you've been dreaming about all along.